Bishop has arrived, and we appreciate that he's made it here safely. They have, your bio was read, so you don't have to go through that. So it's opening comments on your position with regard to the possibility of legalizing marijuana.
Okay, well, I did enjoy the comments made by the previous speaker, and certainly I'm glad to be here and for the invitation. Of course, I did agree with majority of the things that you said concerning marijuana. The only problem I have is that I don't think it should be legalized. Now, marijuana, as far as I'm concerned, I've been in South Philadelphia all my life. I don't think it's a good substance. I don't think that it produces good things. Unfortunately, we have a criminal justice position that deals with racially biased policing that really has unfortunately affected the poor and black in the community. My problem, however, is that I think the problem is systemic within the hearts of people and how we treat crime in this country, period. I think that I was in a meeting with the council concerning, perhaps fining those for possession of marijuana and things of that nature. I think that we have a problem in how we treat people, period. And even if we legalize marijuana, I believe that we have to deal with the heart behind why the criminal justice system consistently targets blacks and those that do what they do. I think that that's where the real problem is. I think we need to address that and not say, well, if we legalize it, then, we will lessen the arrests made on those in the black community. Guess what? Legalize it and they're going to find something else. We have to deal with the issues as they are. I understand what's happening, and I believe that in the fact that they are taking young blacks and other minorities and for a joint or for whatever, and they are using that to mess up their records for the rest of their lives. I get that. But then if that's really just the excuse, it's deeper rooted than just a joint. So now, okay, I'm not going to arrest you for the joint, but I'm going to find something else to arrest you for. And I don't think that's reason enough to legalize something primarily just because we feel like it will be economically beneficial. I think we've done a lot of that in this country, and we're really paying the price. And, being a preacher, I know many say, well, you're kind of coming from a religious perspective. I'm really coming from a human perspective. When we can't fix something in this country, we legalize it. Look at the stats on alcoholism. Look at what it's done. And I know the gentleman said that, you don't see no one smoking weed and, running around ready to jump off a roof. But there are other very real studies done on the damage that weed can do as far as it being a door opener for other drugs. And to legalize it, I don't think just for the economic reason and just for the reason of lowering the arrest rate, so we think it will help. So that's my position, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm ready and willing to engage in this debate or argument. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have, is it till 11? So I will open up with a series, one question for every panelist. Your questions are to be followed. Those of you, exactly, I see the hands up with the cards that are quite prepared, so that's exciting. There are questions. Staff folks, proceed. Kyle, you're right this row. Marlene, is this in this row? All right, good. We'll collect all the cards and then we'll get in as many questions as we can and as quickly. I would ask this. When we ask the question, because there are so many other questions to be had, if you could be as direct, specific, so that we can get as many questions as possible responded to by as broad a range. So I will start with the first presenter. I apologize. Pronounce the last name again? I know, but I want to master it. Rosenzweig. All right, so I'll get that together by the time we leave here. So, Mr. Rosenzweig, you indicated some facts with regard to your support of legalization and how you encountered it, had the opportunity to encounter it. Thought that was quite creative. You sort of went on to suggest, though, that the drug itself is of minor consequence in terms of its ability to intoxicate, and therefore really shouldn't be looked at as that significant a drug relative to the spectrum of drugs I guess one could get. And I heard another comment earlier about comments that are made living, working in the trenches, et cetera. I live in the trenches. I grew up in the trenches. So I have a different perspective on marijuana usage. Frequently, marijuana used in certain communities is just marijuana. Other communities, younger communities, lace marijuana. So in fact, people do jump off of bridges and participate. So if it were, your position with regard to the drug itself sort of flies in the face of the current usage pattern, and what would legalization do to either help it or make it worse?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Generally, I just want to clear something up. When I was talking about the differences between marijuana and the other drugs, I was talking specifically about their addiction potential, the reinforcement, dependence specifically, not its intoxication. Now, when you smoke marijuana, you get stoned. I mean, if you smoke good weed, you're going to get stoned. Generally, the vast majority of people do not lace their marijuana with other drugs. Not only is it totally more expensive to do that, most of the time the other drugs that you would lace it with wouldn't provide the effect because they break down in heat. So cocaine breaks down in heat, LSD breaks down in heat. You're not going to lace your drugs with that. Now, you're right that some people do lace it with things like PCP. And yeah, you're going to have a bad time if you do that. Now, when you regulate marijuana, though, and you legalize it, so you take it out of the black market, you take it out of the hands of the criminals who can do whatever they want with it before they sell it to you. So they have a bag of weed. You say, okay, I want to buy an ounce of weed off you. They sell you that ounce of weed, but they also laced it with PCP. That's certainly possible. But you go to a state store, you go to a place where the system is regulated from seed to sale, just like in Colorado, and you know everyone who's had contact with that marijuana. You know that it's pure. And more importantly, with a good regulation system in place, you have testing. So that marijuana or random samples from all the marijuana that's being sold at a given store or that's being grown at a certain cultivator is sent to a third-party testing facility and verified that it has no contaminants. It's verified for purity, for THC and CBD content, and other contaminants like mold, mildew, and any adulterants, any possible adulterants. So I think when you look at the choice between the opaque black market that has no oversight, no regulation, and it's not taxed, and then you compare it to a legal market where you have those benefits of a completely transparent system from both the public and the government, I don't think there's even a question.
Thank you. You can applaud if you choose to. Captain, one quick question and then a more substantive question. You're here representing the department. Does the department have a specific position with regard to this specific issue?
From a legalization standpoint?
Right.
No, I know none. That's all I know is the enforcement aspect and the continued,
So in other words, the commissioner has not said
he has not said
his
that
position on legalizing drugs is X. I mean, legalizing marijuana is X.
Not as far as I know. I heard that out in the hallway before I came in here today.
Okay.
I heard that.
The second part is while one may agree it's a gateway drug, or it's a variety of things that you said may be in fact true. Let's say everything you said was true. The facts supporting prohibition were and are that when we had prohibition in this country for alcohol, the consumption was so great that you couldn't stop it from being a part of everyday civilized community or society, everyday society. How does this moment differ from that moment, from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, from a law enforcement standpoint, like I mentioned, I think a lot of society travels down that line that once government says it's okay to do, they become, at least use that as an excuse to do. That's my view on that. The other thing was I did a little bit of research before I came here today, and as far as I know, in places over in Europe where it's legalized, it hasn't reduced the amount of usage. I had a friend of mine call out to me.
I'm going to cut you off. I want to go back to my question. How does this moment differ for law enforcement? Fundamentally, prohibition was an absolute failure. The mob, as we understood it, became, frankly, more buoyed and stronger and more economically viable as a result of prohibition. And part of the reason why prohibition was removed was because it was so violent and people got liquor anyway, and frankly, people in higher levels of society were consuming it. So, given that history, specifically around law enforcement's inability to control it, how does this moment, with all the things you're saying are true, but how does this moment differ from a law enforcement perspective from what happened during the period of prohibition?
I think that's I don't know, it's apples and oranges, correct? I mean,
I don't know. I'm asking you.
We wouldn't know until we look back on if it was legalized.
I'm sorry?
We wouldn't be able to look back on it.
Well, my point is, there was a substance which people wanted,
Sure.
alcohol. The government said, and it was legal at one point. Matter of fact, it wasn't even regulated. You know, you could decide to, have all kinds of what do they call it stuff? Moonshine, huh? Stills, right? And all that kind of stuff occurred. The government showed up and said, we're going to regulate it, and then we're going to outlaw it, and then prohibition occurred. And then for a period of X number of years, it got to the point where the government basically said, you know what, we give up because people want it. And if we could have, I'm hearing a lot of conversation. If we had a period of when the government basically said, enough is enough, it's too violent, we can't control it. We're confronted with, and you laid it out, we're confronted with a set of circumstances around marijuana and other drugs, but marijuana primarily, where it's increasingly becoming normal for people to do it in public. Our district attorney has decided to cite it rather than arrest, in that process. So the pressure to do something about it, because it's becoming such an issue, seems to mirror the moment of prohibition to me. From a law enforcement standpoint, to hold on to your position, how do you make it tenable? Because what's different between that time period and this time period reflecting upon prohibition?
Well, I think from a philosophy standpoint, that only time would be able to tell that, if it was reversed and it was to become legal. From my perspective, from a law enforcement standpoint, I'm going to continue to fight the fight as long as it's illegal. And so from that standpoint, my view isn't going to change unless lawfully, the position of society changed it. You know what I mean? I'm going to continue to fight the fight. Okay, so my views aren't changing.
Got it. Thank you. There you go. Mr. Forsythe, you take an interesting position. It seems to me you're not endorsing the consumption of marijuana so much as changing the process and method of how we deal with marijuana usage in this country.
Is that the question? Yes, sir. That's your.
Yeah, I got that part. Yeah.
Mine was easy.
I'm
yes.
trying to sound right. Given that, though, we have legalized, and it was interesting you said, you don't smoke, your 6 children don't smoke. How old are your 6 children, by the way?
I have my 26-year-old.
2.
I have my.
No, what to youngest to oldest? I won't even do that. I'm a
9.
dad. I wouldn't put you on the spot like that.
Yeah.
Youngest to oldest.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah,
what's
what's the youngest to oldest?
I have from 9 to 26.
9 to 26, okay. So, 9 to 26. So to the best of your knowledge, okay.
Well, to the You're right.
My dad taught me that phrase a long time ago.
To the best of my knowledge.
Best of your knowledge. Right.
However, we're very
at least not on holidays in your house.
We're,
okay,
we've always been, from an early age, extremely open on that kind of stuff.
Right.
I was in narcotics, and I had kids going through high school. I knew who their friends were because they would tell me. And the deal was always, I'm not going to do anything to your friends. I just want to know what's going on.
Right.
So I knew a lot of their friends, and there's quite a few of their friends have gotten themselves
So if you had
caught up.
daughters like mine who are wonderful people,
What's that?
if you had daughters like mine, we'll get to the question, but if you have daughters like mine, they did the right thing. They sold you really good.
Yep.
And then later
My
on,
daughters can sell
and
me.
later on at 26, they told me the truth. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. All right. So the basic understanding I have is not so much encouraging it is the method needs to change. And I think a number of people here could support that. The outlier is this, though. The method changes, which means that we turn our back to the obvious, the consequences of legalizing, as we have done alcohol. DUIs in America are at a significantly elevated rate. And frankly, we have not done a very good job of even having to control the consequence because we still have people who drive without licenses, drive with, extremely high levels of alcohol in their bodies. And we can only look to the government as sanctioning that and supporting that because we've allowed it to occur. The question is, while for all the compassionate reasons that you talk about and appropriate reasons you talk about, how do you address this other category that will clearly evolve? And I heard you say nobody's going to jump off a bridge, but I will tell you something. Somebody showing up at surgery on Monday who had a weekend of recreational activity who may be doing heart surgery. They still may be doing it now, but they will be allowed to do it then, or flying a plane, et cetera. How do you respond responsibly to that?
Well, first of all, the surgeon thing, or the bus driver, there's nobody up here who would like a surgeon to be high on marijuana or a bus driver. Also wouldn't like a bus driver to be overtired, a surgeon to be tired from a long weekend, a surgeon to have been drinking all weekend. You address them the same as you do anything else. If the surgeon, if a surgeon's been drinking all weekend, he's wrong. If he's been smoking weed all weekend, he's wrong. If a person's driving the car because they're drunk on alcohol, they're wrong. Now, marijuana.
Well, let me get more specific. Should we be doing more drug testing? If we're going to travel down this path where we allow alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drugs to all be consumed at levels exceeding where they're rationally and responsibly consumed, and we know that we can't necessarily arrest our way out of it, or frankly, find our way out of it, we're going to do it. Should we consider more drug testing for those careers and jobs that clearly would be impeded by the consumption of alcohol or marijuana?
I think all those jobs already are. I can only speak for like law enforcement and the jobs I know. I'm a government contractor now. I do background investigations. We get urine tested. The police department, we used to get random urine tests. I'm sure that's across the board, just about any major police department. Hospitals, I imagine they do too. Just about anywhere does now. Well,
we're not drug testing.
You guys are congressmen and senators.
Well, that's the point I'm making. We have a certain category which is drug tested. We're not, and I'm in budget season. I can't. Jimmy Kinney just came out of budget season. We could sit and do a budget and be high. And by the way, I guarantee you, we have had members in my body sat there passing $26 billion we're expending, and we're passing it, and somebody had a few cocktails the night before.
No.
And they set up and they passed it. So my question is not about, no, not everyone is drug tested. There's a whole category of people who are not drug tested, okay? There are teachers who are not drug tested. There are priests who are not. There are people who have professions that are responsible for the public who are not drug tested. So the question is, should we be more expansive in that category?
I would have to say, if it's a position that could affect public safety, then probably, yeah. They need to be some kind of tests. Now, there's some jobs, if I go get, my daughter and I are going to go get lunch later, I don't necessarily care if the waiter has a urine test or not, or is a drug user or not. But the fact is, we're talking about marijuana. Marijuana, overwhelmingly, from what I've seen from just a law enforcement perspective, it's used recreationally without any police problems by most of the people. The only problems I've ever had with marijuana, as a law enforcement officer, is what the people are doing trying to get away from me when I go to arrest them, and what the drug gangs are doing to each other. Now, as long as we say, as Mr. Rosenzweig said earlier, as long as we allow the drug dealer and the cartel to set what's in the product, if I go buy a bottle of whiskey, I go in a liquor store and I turn on the back, and it says what proof, what's in it, and everything else. But if you want your system now, you let the guy on the corner or the cartel down in South America say exactly what's in it, and you take his word for it. I say regulate it. We tell you what's in it.
You're very effective. I want you to know Jimmy and I marveled at you because you pivoted in the middle of the question. You just went from where we were talking to like the pro of it. That was very effective.
I feel like I'm
meet
on
the press moment, but very good.
I feel like I'm on the stand again.
There you go, Bishop. You are, well, is your position simply born out of a pastoral position, or is your position today representing a broader perspective who's concerned as an African-American community member?
The broader respect. And the reason I say that is because growing up in South Philadelphia, I'm a bishop now, but I grew up in Tasker Home Projects, Passion Home Projects. For my 10th birthday, my old heads in the community bought me a dime bag of joint, and I smoked it very, strongly. I know what weed is. I've done weed. In the community for which I'm a part of, what we used to do was after weed, we wanted something that took us a little higher and got us a little deeper. Now, what I'm saying, based on my experience, those that do weed don't just rest at, okay, this is cool, I'm just going to do this weed. They start young, like I did, and they begin to go down a pathway. We want to legalize it, okay, but does it really make sense? Because the reality is, in the community that I've come up in, I realize that it's not just this recreational thing. These are kids that have no jobs. Recreation from what? They stay on recreation. So now we say, now you really gonna stay on recreation, because now all you're gonna do is go down to the store, and I guess we're gonna have a whole lot of different flavors from the government. You know, get your apple, get your this brand or this brand, and we're going to commercialize it, and then they're going to just take that commercialized brand and they're going to dip it in the embalming fluid and still make it wet or make it whatever choice that they want to dip it in. They're going to do that. My problem is we're going to legalize something and we don't really understand the mindset of the community that really does the drug. So now we do understand that, it's being done in colleges and in the universities. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, you asked the question to the captain concerning how does it compare with prohibition. The fact of the matter is, we've observed what the real legalization of alcoholism has done in our country, and it hasn't been good. It's nothing good about it. And so if it's just about money, let me get on my religious pony right now and say the Bible declares that the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, again, I didn't come here to preach, but there's some and forgive me for my tone and my tenor, but I'm very, very passionate because I understand that, we're trying to take a segment of our society that may use it recreationally and say, well, you know, it's going to be cool if we can legalize it because now people don't have to worry, you know, the kids that do it don't have to worry. Yes, they do. They're not responsible enough to just say, well, I'm just going to go get me a legal pack of weed and then I'm going to be cool because I'm going to do it recreationally and their whole entire life is recreation because they don't have jobs. So my 21-year-old cousin goes and get me my pack. Come on, 21, 29. You know, I was smoking cigarettes.
Pastor,
I'm sorry.
Bishop, I'm sorry.
Forgive me, people.
Bishop.
Forgive me.
All right. The only reason, and by the way,
Forgive me, I'm sorry.
no, it's fine. I'm just asking questions. Just don't hold it against me on Sunday. That's all I'm telling you. So I want, well, one, we're at 11 o'clock, which will be our normal stopping time. We're going to go 5 minutes past that to try to get as many questions in as possible, so I'd ask to be as direct as possible. But I think that they've done an outstanding job responding as quickly. So let's get it and we're going to go a little bit, you know, we're going to break. So our break is going to be condensed. How long are we supposed to be breaking for? Okay, so we're literally going to just stop, have the other panel come up because we have a great second panel of some of these questions, frankly, are for the second panel, not necessarily for the first panel. So I'm going to ask those that I think are appropriate for this first panel. Question is, it sort of goes along with what the bishop just mentioned. Should it be legal to package and sell marijuana in colorful, festive packages that might attract resales used for recreation, particularly to children, minors, and college-age students?
No, I'm for regulating. When I say regulate, you know, we regulate it with what the community says. It's like, you know, how you want, the same thing with going to a shop that sells marijuana. You're not going to find other hard drugs there, whether they want them or not. We want to keep it to just the marijuana, and for this purpose right here.
Mr. Rosenzweig?
I agree with Mr. Forsyth on that. In Colorado, a good example, I'm sure you've all read the story of Maureen Dodd, who ate a marijuana candy bar, a marijuana-laced candy bar, and ended up tripping face for about 8 hours straight because she was new to the experience, she didn't know what she was doing. She ate a little bit of it, didn't feel any effect, ate about half more of it, and then started feeling the effects intensely. Regular people, or sorry, people who use marijuana occasionally, they recognize that you don't do this. And you know, between education, people in the shops teaching new people how to use it, and and I agree, you shouldn't have labeling that targets kids. And a good example of this is Hershey recently sued one of the, I believe one of the dispensaries in Colorado for mimicking the packaging of their marijuana candies because it appeals to kids. And I agree that we shouldn't be making these appeal to the kids. We should make it explicit, just like we do with alcohol, just like we do with tobacco. I don't necessarily think we should have label warnings showing blown up lungs or whatever. But at the same time, no, we shouldn't be targeting these towards kids. We shouldn't be advertising these to kids. We shouldn't be putting TV ads on where during prime time when kids are watching it with their parents. Keep it to adults. And again, with the regulated stores, you walk in, you want to buy it. Sorry, you have to be 21. I
would suggest this because I want to go to the next question. But the government has already done alcohol. Clearly, people underage smoke cigarettes. I see them every day walking down the street. And branding is going to be a part of any marketing process for any product available. But I accept your responses that you don't think it's appropriate. How many hours of police time is spent on marijuana arrests and investigations? I guess that's to the captain. Approximately.
For what? Each arrest, or are we talking about annually?
I'm just reading the question. I'm just the conveyor of the good news.
Right.
How many hours of police time is spent on marijuana arrests and investigation? But if I were you, I would do what Mr. Forsyth did, and that is spin and pivot to answer the question the way you want to answer it.
We had over 6,000 arrests last year. It's obviously a large amount of time that's going to be given to that, but in the grand scheme of things, police work is 24/7, 365-day-a-year operation. So you know, it goes hand in hand with everything else that we investigate.
And we have 3 other questions, but I'm going to save them for the next panel, but this is the last question for this panel. Captain Davidson, you used a statistic, 50% of car accidents involve some form of drugs. Can you be more specific? Is it marijuana you are speaking about, or doctor-prescribed pharmaceuticals, or something such as heroin or methane or alcohol?
First of all, it wasn't all vehicle accidents. It was vehicle accidents where there was arrest for impairment and there was blood taken. It was not drug specific from what they were giving me. That would be something that would have to be looked into at another time. It was real brief. I spoke to a gentleman from Accident Investigation Division, so I can't give you a specific answer at this time. I'm just saying that his answer was at least 50% come back, the blood test come back with some form of not just or alcohol, but some form of narcotics.
We're getting ready to close out the panel. If there's anything that's burning on anyone's heart, please, if you want to say. I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. He was like.
I just want to say one thing. Like I said, I wanted to thank everyone for coming out here and the staff and everyone for putting this together. And you know, just one thing to keep in mind is, you know, the marijuana market. It's here. It's not going away. The question really boils down to, do we want to keep it in the hands of criminals unregulated, or do we want to keep it in the hands of the government where you have oversight and regulation and transparency?
And certainly, I would like to answer that by saying if the government, I think, would do a better job at really stopping the drugs from coming in. See, I think we have a real problem because even in the prisons, how do people in prison do as much drugs and get as much drugs as people that not in prison? Why? Because it's brought into the prisons by those that run the prison. Drugs, and of course, you can throw stones at me, are brought into this country, into our communities, and they're allowed to come in by people that are part of the system of this country. And I don't feel like it makes sense that because we're just not honorable as a people. We allow things to come in. We don't address the right issues. I'm sorry. The real issue is that we have to be, as a nation, as a people, more concerned about our children, about our families, and about our community. And we clearly are not. This is all about economics as far as I'm concerned, and it has nothing to do with anything relative to, well, you know, if we can legalize it, it'll make things better. It will not make things better. No more than alcohol. You know how many people in here have had family members that have been killed and that have been have died as a result of alcoholism. It doesn't make things better because we make it legal. That's my last point. I'm sorry.
Mr. Forsyth?
My final point, and I'll be brief, and again,
You're going to have to be because we have
everybody
no more
on this
minutes left.
Everybody on this panel, I have the utmost respect for. But the fact is, yeah, alcohol has created a lot of problems. Cigarettes create a lot of problems. Drugs have created a lot of problems. That doesn't mean it's a police problem. It's a mental health problem. He's exactly right. Let the mental health professionals handle it instead of a law enforcement officer on the corner with your children at 3 o'clock in the morning or wherever, at 3 o'clock in the morning, locking them up.
Thank you. So, quickly, some housekeeping items before I move on. And did the judge leave? She's gonna. Okay. So I'll wait till she comes back. One, let's thank the panelists. And for those who don't know this, we have a few public officials who are here with us. I see Kiera Bradford Gray, Chief Defender of Montgomery County Public Defender's Office is here. Could that person stand up? She's outside. Okay, all right, never mind. We also have the Honorable Judge Carol H. Nichols, Court of Common Pleas of Philadelphia is with us. If she'd stand. And the Honorable State Representative Jordan Harris. Thank you, and I'd ask the panel to stand so we can transition to other panel up. Thank you very much.